Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Teena Jha, you're watching Perspective. Aviation regulator DGCA on Wednesday issued a show cause notice to SpiceJet after its aircraft were hit by 8 incidents of mid-air technical malfunction over just the last 18 days. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation has pointed out big gaps on how the airline is functioning, from operating flights with degraded safety margins, issues that point at poor internal safety oversight, to vendors not being paid on time, leading to shortage of spare parts for the SpiceJet fleet. The government's notice said SpiceJet is operating its fleet on MEL, or which is also called the minimum equipment list, and this means the aircraft are considered safe to fly, but not all systems are necessarily operational. Apart from SpiceJet, there have also been continuous disturbances in the planes of the country's other major airlines, like Vistara and Indigo in recent days, leading now to serious questions being raised over the lack of safety standards among Indian carriers, and of course, which is paramount, safety of passengers. So to discuss the problem and what must be done for course correction, I'm joined on the program by 3 eminent panelists. So let me first introduce them to you. It's my pleasure to welcome Air Commodore B.S. Siwach, retired Director General, Aviation Safety of India. Air Commodore, welcome to Sansad TV. Thank you for your time. Also a pleasure to welcome Dr. Sanat Kaul, Chairman, International Foundation for Aviation and Drones. Welcome to Sansad TV, Dr. Kaul. And Mr. Amit Singh, Founder, Safety Matters Foundation Aviation. Mr. Singh, thank you for your time. Welcome to Perspective. Air Commodore, let me begin the program with your first comments because, repeated instances, particularly concerning one airline, 8 safety-related incidents in just the last 18 days. What do you think is the problem with India's second largest carrier?
The 8 incidents in a matter of just 18 days is really very alarming situation. And incidents basically are harbinger of accidents. So it is definitely very a grave matter of concern. And because of this, not only the reputation of the airline gets seriously affected, but also the confidence of the passengers in the airline. Obviously, nobody would like to fly with an airline which has got so many number of incidents in a very short period of 18 days. So that is a matter of serious concern. DGCA has rightly acted and carried out various audits, inspections, and issued the show cause notice. Obviously, they are working in the interest of the passenger safety, the aircraft safety, the aviation safety. But problem with our system is that we have a reactive approach. We do not have a proactive approach. Now, reactive approach means accident has already happened or incidents have happened, and thereafter you are reacting, you are issuing various circulars, orders, instructions, taking some preemptive measures, but damage has already been done. So this is where we lack. We need to be proactive. DGC also need to be proactive. They should be keeping a continuous watch on the operation conducted by the airlines. And after this COVID, almost all the airlines, the aviation industry, not only India but throughout the world, is under severe financial distress. And when there is a financial distress, obviously the companies tend to take shortcuts in every aspect that you mentioned, about the minimum equipment list and all that the company is operating.
Absolutely. So that's an important point, and I'll take that across to Mr. Singh. Air Commodore, I'll come back to you to understand, of course, how to improve. And because safety should be paramount, this has been reiterated by the Civil Aviation Minister after the DGCA, issued the show cause notice to SpiceJet. Mr. Singh, safety needs to be paramount, but easier said than done. What we are witnessing is just one airline and 8 safety-related incidents in a matter of two to 3 weeks, and isolated incidents concerning the other airlines in the country as well. How are we going to ensure that safety is above everything else, and that these airline companies do not resort to shortcuts that the Air Commodore just mentioned?
Well, there's a need to overhaul the whole system. If you look at the philosophy of formation of DGCA and the powers given to DGCA, there is a public trust doctrine on which the policies are made, which means the powers belong to the people, the stakeholders, and in good trust, they have been given to the DGCA for good governance to ensure their own safety, for the passenger safety. Now, DGCA has been armed to the teeth with policies. The acts permit them to impose penalties, fines, and there is a methodology. They have an enforcement manual. So on paper, everything looks good. It is only about intent and implementation. So if there is an intent to ensure that safety prevails and there is a fair treatment amongst the airlines, then there has to be a lot of training which has to be done, manpower. So you need manpower, processes, and technology. So all these aspects are totally missing from the regulatory point of view. Manpower, the flight inspectors, they are hired on an ad hoc basis, sometimes for 1 year, sometimes for 2 years. They are trained, they leave, there is a high turnover. So how do you expect people to perform and be motivated to perform? So that is one aspect. Then training of DGCA personnel themselves, they need to be trained on the latest aspects because aviation industry is now using cutting edge technology. All the aircrafts are highly modernized and used very sophisticated equipment. So is DGCA equipped to handle these challenges? And in their inspection and audits, are they familiar with the systems and the processes which are used by the airlines? So if they are not, then they're kind of dependent on whatever input comes from the airlines. And implementation, which means that in case you find in an audit that there are deficiencies, then they have to be categorized. The accountable manager has to be pulled up for all these things. Currently, before this show cause notice, we were looking at the proximate cause of any incident or accident. The proximate cause is the closest cause, which is normally the pilot or the engineer, the cabin crew, or the ground personnel who is there at the scene, the closest person. So that person is blamed for the accident or incident, basically the occurrence, and the matter is closed. So we don't look at the root cause, what actually caused it, but we look at the proximate cause. So things keep repeating themselves. And in a period of, for example, the monsoon, high stress, and the airlines are mounting their commercial operations, so systems break down. So that is when you see the chinks in the armor. So the intent is not there. DGCA should have acted well in advance. The entire aviation industry is dependent on proactive approach, which means we analyze a lot of data and we see trends. So you have to pick up trends. So that is where the industry has to collaborate. The airline need not hide data. They have to be proactive. If an honest mistake has been done.
Certainly. So what kind of collaboration will be required is something that I'll come back to you, Captain. But let me bring in Dr. Kaul and get his perspective. Dr. Kaul, considering the fact that, Indian aviation market is now the third largest in our country now, it's no longer a luxury. It is a necessity looking at the kind of domestic traffic. For how long can we just, look at the immediate causes? A very significant point made there by Captain Singh, that we only look at the immediate cause and not the root cause of the problem. When such incidents happen, what, according to you, is the fundamental problem, and how can we solve that root cause, in order to ensure that such incidents do not recur?
Okay, I think I would like to answer in two ways. One is that the COVID itself for 2 years has made all the airlines highly financially stressed. And well, I don't want to take names, but the particular airline in question is also stressed. Now, the other side is that once you are stressed, then you try and cut corners. And therefore, among other things, safety also comes in. I don't want to make any blame, but the other side is DGCA, which is a safety regulator. The role of DGCA is to inspect, to ensure that all safety systems are in place and are being implemented. Now, the point is that India is the third largest for DGCA to keep up with the increase in number of passengers, number of aircraft, and so on, and the infrastructure involved. Is it doing so? It is doubtful. Even earlier, when the Federal Aviation Authority of US downgraded India, the Prime Minister had to call a meeting to create more ports. DGCA is stuck with limitations of government and a whole lot of other things. It does not have enough research capability. It does not have, as the previous speaker pointed out, technology inputs coming to it. The second aspect is that there was some time back a full study done by a consultant from ICAO to create a civil aviation authority which will be financially independent. It will have a source of finance. Now that has been put in the back burner. I think that was a mistake, because I think if you create an authority with the kind of planning, the kind of proposal that ICAO had given, it would have made a lot of difference for the health of DGCA. It would have made it more proactive and would have made it more professional. Anyhow, so that is one aspect. So between these two, the financial stress of the airlines because of COVID, they have severe problems and they have to make profit to ensure that even the backlog of losses is cleared. These airlines are commercial airlines, they have shareholders, they have to report profit, they are not doing a public service. So one of the aspects which does should get compromised, I mean not should, but do happen to get compromised, is the safety management system. And therefore one cannot make a general statement.
Okay.
And I feel that because of the stress, there is a need for government to reduce certain taxes and on tax on ATC, which is crucial, which has been discussed so many times. There is a proposal to bring ATC, air turbine fuel, into the GST system, which will bring it down. But nothing seems to be moving. I'm only saying this because unless the airlines are given certain concessions, it's not even a concession.
Okay.
I mean,
Hey, Commodore, let me take that point to you. You know, reducing taxes is one suggestion that Dr. Kaul has pointed out. Another aspect that, you know, these airline companies have been flagging is the lack of a competitive advantage in the country. Now, when it concerns passenger safety, how valid is this argument? And the second aspect that I want you to touch upon is, now that the DGCA has stepped up and issued a show cause notice, help us and our viewers understand how empowered is the regulator to take some kind of stern action, because this comes in the backdrop of recurring incidents by one particular airline.
And definitely, DGCA is empowered to take certain action. They can carry out enforcement action like suspension, derostering, and some kind of other punishment, imposing some fine also. So that is the prerogative of the DGCA. They can do it. But only thing is that this is okay when there's a lot of coverage in the media and everything is very hot and everybody talking about it, reacting. At the time, DGC also wakes up immediately and takes certain actions. But thereafter, if there any going to be follow-up action or not, that is very important. So that is where we get into problem. Yes, definitely, running an airline is quite a risky business. It's very finance intensive and it requires a lot of finances. And definitely airlines need to be given some kind of concession in airport development charges, or maybe landing parking charges, or other navigation charges, and also reduction in the GST, etc., or VAT on the fuel. So they have to be given certain relief because they are always running in kind of sort of financial problems. So for that, but I really don't know if that is required, because most of the time you find that all the airlines are running to full capacity. Then you can't get seats on most of the airline, but still they show that they are running losses. I don't know whether it is fudging of the documents or this is a genuine problem. And as far as the government bailout is concerned, we had been bailing out Air India for so many years. Ultimately, it ran into 75,000 crore debt, and all me and you taxpayers were supporting its day-to-day running. So that is not the way. Government can't keep on bailing out. Now the SpiceJet is in deep financial trouble. The financial audit was carried out. Indigo also say that is having serious financial problem. That's why recent problem of so many flights which were cancelled due to the mass sick report by almost 900 cabin crew. So that kind of thing is very bad for the industry. It is very harmful and has a adverse impact on safety. So we have to, government, DGCA and all other stakeholders must carry out brainstorming how it can be, how airline can be helped, how passenger safety can be kept uppermost in mind, and incidents and accidents do not recur. And another important thing which Mr. Sanat highlighted was the formation of Civil Aviation Authority. Now, Civil Aviation Authority you have all around our world, where the Civil Aviation Authority as a regulator has got much more power, much more flexibility. Okay, but here DGC has got very limited power, limited flexibility, limited financial backing. All these issues, I don't know for whatever reason, the bill was almost passed in the parliament, but thereafter again it was told. There are some vested interests which are working against the formation of Civil Aviation Authority in our country.
Okay,
Pakistan
okay.
has it, Nepal has it,
For now,
Bangladesh
of
has
course,
it,
the serious
Sri Lanka
concern
has it.
remains is about passenger safety. The credibility of the airline is at stake. Captain Singh, the company, of course, the company we're talking about has been incurring losses for the last 3 years. A lot of aviation experts, have cited an eerie similarity between what SpiceJet is going through to what happened to Kingfisher, almost a decade ago. Do you think SpiceJet is also headed the Kingfisher way?
Well, I hope not. But if you see the trend, as pointed out in the show cause notice, that as per the audit, the airline was on a cash and carry for spare parts, and there were issues regarding the spare parts and payments. We've seen a number of times that for fuel, they have been on cash and carry. For the airports, the flights were delayed some time back because the airport's authority was not paid. So this is basically an indicator that there is something very wrong. So after the Kingfisher debacle, DGCA came up with a regulation, civil aviation requirement, wherein if an airline is undergoing financial distress, then it is incumbent upon DGCA to monitor the functioning of the airline, especially the safety aspects more closely and under a microscope, actually, so that no corners are cut and spare parts, because of which a lot of incidents or occurrences have happened in the past, especially weather radar related. The last accident SpiceJet had was in Durgapur when the aircraft flew through turbulence, and a lot of passengers were critically injured, hospitalized. So that is one case, and I think 2 days back, another aircraft departed Kolkata and turned back because the weather radar was not functioning. So these are indicators that there is something wrong with the quality systems. So either the spare parts procured are of a cheaper quality. So DGC has to intervene and ensure that the safety management system is working efficiently. So is the quality management. Both are kind of different, but both have to support each other and work in tandem. So the safety management system is also highlighted in the show cause notice.
Absolutely. The DGCA has to get more involved in the wider scheme of things. Dr. Kaul, coming back to you for one last comment on looking at how, there are indications that the instances over the last few weeks have lowered safety standards, passenger safety is at risk, and now the credibility of the airline is also at stake. To ensure that all of this is taken care of, there is, immediate course correction. How do you look at the future of this particular airline, of course, and also the domestic aviation industry?
Well, in my view, the future looks bright, but safety is one important aspect. The urge to travel sometimes comes nearly equal to the two-tier railway ticket or a little more. So people save money by traveling by air because they just save the time which it takes to travel by air than travel by train. So from that aspect, it's fine. People are taking the risk. But it is incumbent upon DGCA to ensure that all safety standards are maintained, and they have to make sure that it's all done. Therefore, they need to have a very vigilant inspection system. Now, is DGCA equipped for it? I don't know. With the increase in number of aircraft and number of passengers, aircraft are getting added every month. Is inspection numbers of inspectors or inspections by DGCA going up accordingly? I don't think so. So these are very serious issues where routine inspections, routine management of DGCA is important. They have to keep these airlines in check. And I had mentioned earlier that the financial stress of the airline due to COVID needs to be looked into. After all, it is not their fault when airlines were not allowed to function because of COVID. So I'm not asking for a subsidy or a bailout. I'm sorry, I never use the word bailout. I never use the word subsidy either. I'm saying there has to be rationalization of taxes. Today, air turbine fuel in some cases comes to around 50% of the operation. Now that's very high by international standards. You have to look at it from a more rational view. In fact, the international travel, because of the International Civil Aviation Organization and the Chicago Convention, there are no taxes on fuel. Now that's because we have signed certain treaties. We have signed the Chicago Convention. Otherwise, the difference between international flights in which fuel is picked up in India much cheaper than a domestic flight. Now, these are things which need to be looked into.
Absolutely. So there are multiple shortcomings, and all stakeholders, especially when it concerns passenger safety, the buck cannot stop with just the airline. It is all stakeholders who have to come together and, find solutions to make airline travel safe and reliable. So that having been said, I'll have to wind up the discussion. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the program today, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. Absolute pleasure to have you on the program. So that's it from us on this edition of Perspective. Thank you, viewers, to you as well for your time. See you again same time tomorrow now with a new topic and a brand new panel of experts. Until then, take care of yourselves and keep watching Sansad.